YouTube channel. I just hit the button. Give me one moment. But what I've learned from prior experiences is when YouTube and Zoom come together, there is a lot of echo. So I have to do some housekeeping at my end as well. One moment, please. Okay, we are live on YouTube. Some housekeeping. So as I said, panelists will help answer the questions from the audience, and the attendees can ask questions using our Q&A. We have also allotted some time towards the end, specifically for the Q&A and the attendee and the panelist interaction. So please take advantage of that. If there are some questions that are left unanswered, we will make sure that we respond by email. You can send in your questions, or you can reach out to us at our own email, which is support@admis.com. And with Dr. Khan's help, between Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University and Admis, we will try to answer all your questions. So let me shift gears. Navneet, a lot is happening in our ecosystem. A lot is happening in the environment. I know today the mind immediately comes to the pandemic, because it has caused a level of turmoil, whether personally, socially, economically, that we have never seen before, right? Even before pandemic hit us, the intensity of digitization was at its peak. We were seeing business models getting disrupted. We were starting to see the brick and mortar traditional Kirana stores, banks, retail stores. Now everything is online. Rather than standing in a queue and trying to pay the cashier, now we are waiting eagerly for the delivery person to come and leave the package outside the house. What is happening? What exactly is going on? Would love to hear your perspective.
Thanks, Vivek, and thank you, Dr. Rehan and Amitabh, for partnering with me in this conversation. Vivek, as we all know, every challenge throws with itself some opportunity. So the pandemic has had its debilitating effect across the board, socially, economically, and every which other way that you can think of. There's been the worst part of the pandemic has been the reverse migration of the labor. But to me, that is a huge opportunity. So before I go to Industry 4.0 and digitization and so on and so forth, I think the more important change that has happened is there has been reverse migration. The local talent has to be leveraged. And to leverage the local talent, we as a nation need to start thinking in terms of building localized skilling infrastructure, which takes care of what is happening in that geography and creates an environment of maybe 1 million micro entrepreneurs across the country. So the Prime Minister keeps talking about, Atmanirbhar Bharat, about vocal for local. There are some districts in some states in India which are actually doing one district, one product. So you identify, for example, Aligarh for locks or brass, and then you start doing just that there. So these kind of micro enterprises need to be set up. Training infrastructure for that needs to be done. And most importantly, and I'll share a statistic which will boggle us. Most importantly, there has to be an infrastructure for formalizing skilled people. So, on the one hand, and this is actually quite a amazing statistic. On the one hand, we say that we have 2 to 2.5% people skilled, quote unquote, in India. If you compare that with Europe or US or any other place, they are in the late 50s. There was a study conducted by NSDC and CMI last year, just before the pandemic. And this was a household survey that CMI conducted. And we figured that almost 48% of Indians have some skill or the other, not 2.5%. But the challenge is it's not formalized. So a father was a plumber. He has passed on his plumbing skill to his son, and his son will pass on to his son. Some of those people migrate back to the city and become construction workers, and gradually that skill will get lost. But formalization of that skill at the local level is not happening. So to me, the biggest challenge that the country faces today is a local level micro entrepreneurship infrastructure with local level training infrastructure. And the government is working in that direction, but I'm sure Dr. Khan will have more inputs on that. But that is the way forward as far as I'm concerned. We'll touch on various other things separately, but this to me is number one.
Thank you, Navneet. So, Dr. Khan, one of the, and let me just flip a page. I wanted to share the very interesting chart I saw in India Skill Report 2021, which has been recently published and very current. It is a very credible source. They have looked at 65,000 data points, 150 plus companies to come up with their own research and establish the facts. And they have been doing it for the last 8 years now. And we have been following them very closely. One of the things what Navneet is talking about is micropreneurship now, entrepreneurship to micropreneurship. The other thing which is very remarkable is when we look at the numbers. So you see how the employability has changed over the years. In the last 3 years, we are seeing a declining percentage of employability of the youth. And I know that you have a very recent assignment, and congratulations, by the way, for getting this top job and a critical one. But from your vantage point, when we see from outside that only 45.9% of the youth are employable today, or there is, that can be employed in the industry, I am sure that it bothers you. How do we increase this? How do we prepare our youth for the challenging new future of work, new way of work, the way the industry is shifting? From your vantage point, how do you see universities like the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University playing a critical role in helping power the fuel for the future?
Thank you very much, Vivek. It's really, so first of all, I thank you for associating with our university. You really, I have seen you in terms of conducting the kind of sessions with the students across the country. Thank you very much. And I must say one thing, as the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University has been set up for the purpose of just filling this gap, what you are showing on this screen. And another thing is, I'll also just touch upon few more points, but before that, I would like to just tell about the university. The Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University has been set up, of course, just to fill this gap by increasing the employability, by providing the skill to more people of Delhi and NCR and of India also. But the most importantly, the filling the gap, especially which is, or you may say, we would like to just fill or just provide the support to the industry, which really industry is really facing the crisis in terms of talent crunch. Because there are two aspects. I have seen the two World Economic Forum reports, 2016 and 2020. 2016, when the Industry 4.0 started, and at that time, there was a rapid job growth as well as talent crunch. Same is also happening right now. There is a rapid job growth, though there are a lot many jobs are not existing right now. As per the EY skill report 2017 said, say after 5 years, like in 2022, 37% of the skill set will not be kind of, or the people those are having this skill set, they will be out from the job. So it is happening basically, though employability are having two kind of issues. One is skill instability. Another thing is the kind of learning, the kind of education system in lot many institutions. So industry-led courses are really very, very low. and Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University is focusing on partnering with the industry. We would like to reduce the pain of the industry also in terms of identifying, in terms of getting the right skill set, the kind of right talent which they are really looking for. Because, as we all are projecting that also, because say the job which is existing today will not be available after say 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. So right now, the kind of skill set which what we are offering to the students, that would not be available. I think that skill set would not be required at the level when the student will pass out. So that's why we are focusing on futuristic skills, and we are just trying to uh, imbibe the skills among the youth, especially of this age from 18 to 21, especially because now Delhi Skill University has 10 polytechnics under this, 14 world-class skill centers, and 3 engineering colleges. Apart from that, because we are offering 40 plus diploma engineering courses. So now we are just reviving those courses and just fulfilling them, like we are revising the course as per the need of the industry, number one. Number two, we have recently launched 12 graduation programs as per the need of the industry with the industry partnership. After taking the consultation of industry, we have developed the curriculum, and we are just keeping 50% practical hands-on on-job training. So that's why students can really be skilled on job. They'll be skilled during the internships, and it would be the component every year, the component would be close to 50%. And there is a mobility also. There's a multi-entry, multi-exit system. So I think this would really help students in terms of getting more skills, and they will be industry ready, and industry will be happy to have them as a fresh graduates. This is my take.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Khan. So Amitabh, as I hear, the change happening that Navneet talked about, from entrepreneurship to micropreneurship, and then how, as from a supply side, Dr. Khan is talking about the changes where they are trying to bring in industry relevant curriculum inside the academic environment. I think that is going to go a long distance. Today, when you think from your vantage point as a business leader in the industry, Amitabh, do you see there is a gap between what the industry needs and what we are ready in terms of our youth that are being primed for coming out of the universities? What do you see from your vantage point very specifically?
See, the skill gap in India and in many parts of the world is across levels. It is across different jobs. Even the unskilled jobs, you need skills. So I'll give you a small example. There's a lot of movement to online, but online is on fiber optics technology, which is essentially laying of glass under the ground. Now, not only in India, in many parts of the world, this is done by an unskilled labor. Now, if you're handling glass and if you're using unskilled labor, the life of a fiber, which should last 30 years, gets reduced to 7 years. By the way, in many parts of the world, there is no way even to track what you have laid because municipal pipelines are coming, so on and so forth. So when there is a new society or a new residential area coming up, there is no way to even report where the fiber is, how to extend it, and it's quite chaotic. Now, this is just an illustration to underscore that the skill gap is just not in universities, even in the unskilled part of the labor, there's huge skill gap. Now, government is paying enormous amount of money for people to self-skill themselves. And of course, private sector is coming out with universities. For instance, in my last company, in Sterlite Tech, we had a Sterlite Tech Academy. We still have it, where we wanted to train 10,000 people, pay them, and ask them to, because we were laying fiber nationwide. and asking them to open their own small business and take responsibility. So there is on one side of the equation tremendous demand, and the other side of the equation there is tremendous gap as far as skill is concerned. I think that is just stating the obvious. We all know it, and of course the government is not able to keep up. The universities are not able to keep up. Now today, for instance, educating yourself has become very easy because through Coursera or through, there are many, lot of high quality education is free. Mobile rates, at least in India, we know are the lowest. Everyone has a smartphone. But I think the knowledge, while there is some language gap, but to convert knowledge into skill, which is practical, is a major Herculean challenge. And it shows everywhere. It shows in your MBA programs, it shows your engineers. And now the joke has become with the education going online, the people who are, and this is not to, of course, discourage. I think online is a great thing, but that practical training which one needs is also now becoming a missing. How do you, uh, physically coach a person how to lay a fiber? In hospitality, how do you physically tell someone how to, you can watch a video of cooking, and, you can practice, but that coaching, that physical aspect is missing. So I think what is happening is the practice part of it is a major gap. And it is something which we all have to confront and which we all have to, come together and solve for it.
Understood. So it is interesting because when you talk about, for example, the fiber case, you talk about, you took a number 10,000 as a gap. And I'm looking at Dr. Khan and I'm saying, Dr. Khan, you are responsible for 12,000 students and upskilling them. And immediately in my mind, I see the dots connecting. And I'm saying, is this exactly what this whole conversation is about? Bringing industry and academia together. And I think this is a great convergence where now the transparency is leading us to recognize what that complementary space is where industry and academia can play together. So I compliment Dr. Khan for one thing he said, that a lot of the universities, they don't have the industry relevant courses. They have been following a curriculum which was set up that was set up like 40 years ago. How regularly are we refreshing? See, industry is changing. Now we are talking industry 4.0. Industry has been changing at a very rapid pace. In fact, there was a time when in my corporate life, I used to make a decision on technology or the choice of technology. Within a year, it used to become obsolete. How is it possible that the university is not keeping pace with the industry? And that is where Dr. Khan, I think the Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University is going to play such a critical role. That is where Navneet was talking about what exactly Amitabh said, making them micropreneurs. So Dr. Khan provides them the tools, and Amitabh and Navneet from the industry side provide them the opportunities. Go and set your own business and take the world on and take the fiber optic nation forward. And I'm using it as a metaphor. But I think I see this convergence happening. One of the interesting things that we are finding, Amitabh, to what you said, education going digital, going online, there is a huge risk. And I would love to hear, Dr. Khan, your perspective about that. The risk we see from Edmist's vantage point is, as we are engaging more and more with individuals and corporates, there is an increasing reliance on Google University, WhatsApp University, YouTube University, a lot of such universities where we have two issues, where the content is uncontrolled, unregulated, and unverified. Two, it's a classic case of average making everybody an average, because the same content is being accessed by everybody. So how will we differentiate between who's really great versus who's just good? So the journey that every individual wants to undertake in a career or in a professional life, whether through college education, digital education, online education, whichever education is, how do I become from good to great? But if I'm accessing the Google and the WhatsApp University with unverified content and everybody else is doing it, I don't think I'm going to become great. I'm going to probably stay good. So, Dr. Khan, how do you think from a curriculum standpoint, from an approach standpoint, as you compete now, not against other universities, as you're not competing against other universities, now you're competing against, and let me use this word, free ka gyan. When you compete something which is available free, how do you see this? How do you see yourself driving this excellence in education, excellence in what we consume as a student?
You rightly pointed out these things, and these are the limitations of today's scenario. But one thing is that was the only option left with the education system, as people were not allowed to go out. So at least we got something to utilize the time of the students. There's more than 80, more than 14, 16 months. Students are not in the classrooms. So that was the only option left. But one thing I would like to just say, this is right, this is true. And there are not many cases, there are not many innovations also which have been done by the teachers. So it's not that only, and there are not many courses, those are not really required practical classes. So this is one. But the moment you talk about skill set, as Mr. Amitabh also pointed out about the Coursera and edX or some online good programs, then people are learning from them. Number one. Number two, uh, content was always there. It's not that now content is there, but now content is freely accessible right now easily. Earlier you had to go to libraries to get the content, but now you can just on a click you can get the content. But content was always there. Now it's up to the person who's getting the content, because the education system is basically meant to give a guidance in terms of learning and using the content. This is number one. Number two, as you very rightly pointed out and asked this question in terms of the competition with the people, those are just freebies or kind of free gyan outside, and it's also not verified, and it's also you can never know what would really be right and wrong. So in that term, I would like to just say one thing, as our curriculum is number one, well derived and devised and developed by the consultation of the industry need and the future needs. Number one. Number two, we are focusing more on training. We are focusing more on partnership with the industry. I just tell you one example of one course we are offering. We are with the companies like you have heard this Chroma Stores, Infinity, this company, and they are partnering with us, and our students will go every day 4.5 hours at a store. So when they'll just study 4 hours with us and then 4.5 hours at the store every day. So online would serve the purpose. Even they are not coming to classroom, they're going to the store and learning, because learning laboratory would be the industry now. It's not the learning laboratory is not inside the university. It's outside the university. The laboratory is basically, the laboratory is the industry. So our programs are 50% practical in industry, with industry, on-job training, or whether you call it internship, apprenticeship. So students really will learn whether even Allah kare ke this pandemic would be over, so we'll not face further these closure of our institutions. So people should come physically inside the campus. But even though as we are not expecting right now within 1 or 2 months, so we are just planning to get our people like students by first week of September. So if in case that would be online, so we'll just give them online sessions, and but they'll continue their training with the industry. So that is the only option left with us. So we are just focusing more on industry practical. So I think as very rightly pointed out by Mr. Amitabh, in terms of hands-on training. You can't learn swimming just by online sessions. You can't learn cricket by online sessions. Where there is a practice, you have to do the practice. So that's the right thing. Yes, thank you.
Very good. I think I don't want to trivialize what you said, but I will be the first one to say I would love to learn swimming by watching an online session. So thank you. I'm going to actually use this example. So the other thing is, I just want to highlight one thing. This session is not about doom and gloom. I also want to talk about really quick, and give me one moment. Sorry, my screen for some reason stopped sharing. So I also want to highlight, in spite of the pandemic, and I agree, I hope it ends as soon as possible. I hope we come out of this grief and what we are dealing with. And I hope humanity resumes normalcy as soon as possible. But the good news is the industry continued its progress forward. Yes, there was an impact. Obviously, a lot of things changed. There was an impact on our top line. Revenue fell. A lot of industries were impacted directly. Some were impacted as a collateral damage. But it was worldwide, and not just in India or Asia or in one part of the world. It was everywhere. We saw that. In the first wave itself, we saw 40 lakh people losing their jobs in India, and that's not easy. The good news is the industry has continued to hire. Even though if you see this chart, it says, we are readjusting the employment opportunities, but I think Navneet said something very important right in the beginning. When a plumber is passing on the skills from father to son, there is a tribal knowledge that does not get counted in our formal sector of employment. There is a micropreneurship which is already existing. How does that come back and get counted as the employment opportunities into the measurement of employment opportunities which are readjusting? Even though we are saying today that we have declined by almost 9%, 9 percent points from 2020 to 2021, from 56% to 47% on this chart. But guess what? It is not 20%. It is still just a 9% impact. In spite of the turbulence we as a country, we as a society, and we as a race have been exposed to, this is still showing the resilience of the industry. And I'm again going back, I'm not counting the micropreneurs that Navneet pointed out in the beginning, because those micropreneurs, and with Dr. Khan's help, will have now even more tools, more powerful resources available to them to not stay hidden. Those micropreneurs will have a voice and a seat in the economy. They will be more resourceful, more powerful, more influential, and more impactful as they start doling out their services. Because what is happening, and I have to take an example here, we are seeing, we are seeing what we call the gig economy taking shape. In Edmist, and I know I can take your example, there is one gentleman here in the attendees, and he will smile and acknowledge that I'm talking about him. We found him through Upwork. Upwork is an aggregator of people who are in the market, who have idle capacity and can add value. It is, I call it Upwork, Upgrad, a lot of these kind of platforms, they are actually giving structure to the informal sector. We have found fantastic resources, and this particular gentleman who is on the call, he is actually helping Edmist, keeping us safe as a company. We found him through a gig platform, and we found he was so skillful, he's so powerful, he's so knowledgeable, and he's so hungry to learn. And now combine it with what Dr. Khan is talking about. You bring industry, academia partnership together. You put the tools from the labs, from the research tables, onto the hands of the micropreneurs, and boom, Amitabh has a ready-made 10,000 people that he needs for laying the fiber. It's a very powerful future we are looking up to. Very powerful future we are on the cusp of. And I think that is what we from Edmist are trying to unleash by bringing people like Dr. Khan, like Navneet and Amitabh together, so that we can increase this participation Take it away just from a campus recruitment to a curriculum co-creation. I think that is the key. And I can see this happening now that Dr. Khan, you have seen what happened in Jamia when you were leading the university placements. You saw what the industry was looking for. And now it's your time to actually institutionalize those lessons and bring them together and start creating the tools for making it more powerful for the micropreneurs. So I see this triangulating for the youth of the country. The other interesting statistic, Navneet, which I want you to talk about is, very recently, you and I were having a conversation where you talked about the aging population, right? How is the India youth getting ready to actually become a leading economic contributor for the entire world, not just for their local communities, but not just for the state or the country, but for the entire world? Would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. You know what Dr. Khan said is a great segue into what I want to speak up. And here's a statutory warning. What I'm going to say is a little controversial, and it is going to, I have been lobbying about this with the government for the last 2 years. So, as long as we connect skill with education, and we view both of them similarly, we will never ever be able to do justice to skill. Here is why. Uh, Education has a certain role to play in a person's development. One can't argue with that. But skill has a role to play in development of the economy. What I'm fighting with the government for right now is, please, for heaven's sake, declare skill as an essential service. Why? Because if you don't declare skill as an essential, you have bars open, you have restaurants open, you have, Khan Sahab was saying, September se pehle khulega nahi. You have bars open, you have restaurants open, you have theaters open, and you have skilling centers closed. What will happen after the pandemic when industries open and they need skilled manpower? Forget about that. I hope it never happens. But assume there was a third wave. Of course, last couple of days we've started, the Prime Minister inaugurated a program 3 days back. Are we training enough healthcare workers so that we don't face the same kind of challenges that we faced in the second wave? And for that, we need to consider skill as an essential service. At least for the next 10 years, skill has to be considered an essential service. And, just to dramatize the point, so this is one part of it. The other part, DSU and similar universities and the skilling centers that the government is funding, their competition is not the free wala gyan which is available in the market. No. Their competition has to be the training center of the industry. Dr. Khan's DSEU should target to shut down Maruti's training center. Why should Maruti have its own training center when there is a Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University? There has to be a triangulation between the demand of Maruti, which they have. As an IT guy, all of us, Amitabh, of course, was the guru, but even we guys have had 6-month forecast of hiring with skill sets. And that 6-month forecast of hiring with skill set goes to our hiring teams. The hiring teams and the training teams go out to the market and ensure that we get the people on time. Today, because we take skill as education, and therefore you teach them the same curriculum day in and day out, there is no triangulation. We are creating one supply set and we are creating one demand set. The demand and supply is not talking to each other. That combination is what DSEU kind of places will bring. And in an ideal world, a Maruti will not need to have its own training institute. DSEU will be good enough to supply whatever they need for their requirements. So that's just a kind of additional to what Dr. Khan said. Talking of demography, this is another. It's a global challenge. So, India right now, I just dug some data out. So 62.5% of our population currently is in 15 to 59 years bracket, which will go up to about 65% in the next 10 years. If you look at the median age right now, India's median age is 28, China is 37, US is 37, Western Europe is 45, Japan is 49. 10 years from now, a median Japanese will be 59 years old. Who will make buildings? Who will construct roads in Japan? Who will man the Japanese hospitals? 10 years from now, an average Western European, a median Western European will be 55 years old. Who will make roads in Western Europe? Who will work in the factories of Mercedes-Benz, in the factories of BMW? We have to stand up for the world. And India has to become the global skill capital if the global economy has to survive. Forget about everything else. Forget about us and our economy to build up. I firmly believe that India has to integrate with global economies in order for the globe to have trained manpower for its survival. And that really is one metric which I'm pushing again very hard with policymakers. Khan Saab has access to all the policymakers, so maybe we can make a beginning there. But clearly, this is the way forward in my mind. In my simple mind, the way forward is skilling universities are essential service, not educational institutions. They need to replace training institutes of industry, and India has to gear itself up for supplying manpower to the global economy. This is my big takeaway.
Excellent, Navneet. Thank you very much for that perspective. And I'm going to now put the spotlight on Amitabh, because you said something, yes, very controversial. So when I look at the reports, I see there is a lot of emphasis on kinds of skills that are getting highlighted as gaps, the kind of skills that the industry needs. If Amitabh has to shut down, and I'm just going to make another controversial statement, just to provoke Amitabh now. If Amitabh has to shut down his training and L&D department in GMR, he needs to make sure that Dr. Khan's university is providing all the kinds of skills that Amitabh needs to be able to make him even greater, to make GMR even better. Status quo is not an option. True. We are talking about the journey everybody wants to undertake from good to great, whether it is an individual or the corporate. So if Amitabh, you have to go from good to great, and if you have to shut down your L&D and you have only Dr. Khan to rely on, and by the way, the screen I'm sharing is showing the top skills. We are talking about technical skills and in an increasing resurgence of soft skills, which have traditionally been missing. How do you see, Amitabh, any of this becoming real? What do you tell Dr. Khan? What do you tell the students of Delhi's Skill and Entrepreneurship University that, yes, I'm going to hire from DSEU and I'm going to hire those students if they can show me a few things here? What will you tell them?
So Vivek, I'll tell two things which are inherent in needs of student and of corporates. Student wants to get better and they want autonomy whom to choose. They want a choice and they want to get better. Corporates are no different. They also want to get better people and they want a choice where to go, whether it's for their hiring need, for their training need. So to that extent, I would say, if nothing, COVID has taught us one thing, that is of interdependence. And I'll give two examples to underscore that. We have realized we are not safe till everyone in our office is safe. The person who serves us tea is also safe. So just by getting vaccinated, I can't be comfortable. So that interdependence is very, important aspect which all of us have learned. Secondly, I'll give you an example of the airport. Delhi is the fourth largest airport in the world. in terms of passenger traffic. It means nothing if Bombay airport is not safe. It means nothing if Lucknow is not safe. Because passengers may exit, and if you come to our airport, you'll see latest display of technology around safety. But it really means nothing if the guy lands in Lucknow or Bombay and doesn't have the same protocol. It has to be standardized, which makes our passengers feel safe. Only then travel will come back. So competition has given way to interdependence and people want choice. So as long as corporates have their own, like example Navneet gave of Maruti, and why not going solely to Dr. Khan, I think we'll have to give choice to people. Because if Maruti today actually has a big monopolistic hold over Indian auto industry, and they will have their own arguments why they need it, because they have such captive consumptions and they want to have a say in curricula, so on and so forth, and it's an endless argument. But the point I'm trying to make is, and one should not get into it, is that I think we should give choice. And if you are good, whether as a corporate or as an institute, and if you realize that you have to collaborate and not compete, I think everyone will come up. A safety protocol is a very good example. Third, Navneet talked, or you talked about, Japan, Europe. Exactly my point. If everyone's skill levels raises up, you can't stop aging in Europe, Finland, which is the happiest country in the world. You can't stop that, but you can definitely support them with very skilled people from India or other parts of the world. So I think one silver lining of this pandemic is to realize anything which we do, competition is giving way to interdependence, and the collaboration is showing in many aspects. We are realizing that even competitors are becoming collaborators. For instance, if you take tech, Apple talks about privacy. It really disrupts Facebook business model. Okay, but both are important. Facebook says I'm helping through my open ad source, small entrepreneurship. Apple is saying, well, privacy is very important for our customers. So there has to be some middle path. Either or arguments are not going to work any further. I think that is what my submission would be. I hope I have answered your question.
Very good, Amitabh. Well said, well said. I just want to ask you one thing though, almost selfishly. This resurgence and I'm glad you talked about choices and the need to become better. But the resurgence of certain kinds of skills, certain kinds of expectations from the industry, which have traditionally not existed in the classroom, in the traditional classroom model. For example, the soft skills, leadership, communication, they're being taught as subjects, but not as a practice. So there is a very interesting question that Tushar is asking us, Dr. Khan. He's one of the attendees here. So Tushar, thank you for this wonderful question. He's saying, should it be made mandatory for any management student or a group of students to set up a startup during college as a part of their course or curriculum? So that's, of course, Tushar's question, which I want one of you to answer. But in the context of what he's asking is something similar. I want to ask you about the soft skills, because they have traditionally been very difficult as the last mile competitive advantage in candidates. I have interviewed more than 5,000 people in my corporate life. It was not because I struggled to find technically competent people, because I used to struggle to find people who could demonstrate their understanding of what is collaboration, what is effective communication. And that stopped me from hiring some very good people also. How do you, Amitabh, see in the current context, the resurgence and the emergence of soft skills as a differentiator? Because we also heard 7 out of the 10 skills that the industry is now looking for are soft skills. And maybe the pandemic has probably reinforced that point even more.
So who's your question to, Vivek?
First is to you, Amitabh.
Okay. Okay. See, I think you see it at home. I was, in fact, Vivek, if you remember, I was telling you how my 23-year-old comes from office and locks himself in room. right? And I think it's just a technology. And you said your son also does the same thing. I think it's technology. Everything gets consumed online on your mobile device. If you look at young people, they are only communicating through WhatsApp, Insta, text. So to that extent, there is a change in technology, there is a change in lifestyle, and there is a change in communication. It's not that they are not communicating; it's just that they are communicating in a way, at least, is alien to me. I can speak for myself because I am being in HR as well as of a different generation. I'm more wanting in person, even in COVID times, face to face conversation. So first of all, you have to recognize they do communicate, but the language, the medium has changed. And I think problem solving communication applies to us also because we have to learn the language of millennials. And of course, not that they are perfect. We also have to be able to, train, coach all these things, which comes over a period of time in a way they understand. See, soft skills, I still maintain if you have the left brain, learning Python programming neural networks is far easier because it is logical. Soft skills on the right side, it's intuitive, and that only develops through years of experience, practice, reflection, so on and so forth. Technology is changing that. And I will not say it's taking away that. It's changing that because if you just see your children or my children, they communicate pretty much with their peer group without even meeting. So you have to first recognize that even in the same country, the language of digital divide is for us also not because we have access to all the instruments by God's grace, but there is a digital device which is mindset. Okay, so soft skill is just not for youngsters; it's for us also.
Very well said.
Okay. In the same vein, I would say it's for them also. Because just communicate, just having thousands of people on Facebook and not having 5 best friends is also a very serious poverty of relationship. So it's a question of balance. It's a question of balance. You need to be very savvy digitally because digitally, if nothing else, enables the interaction. But meaningfulness, sincerity will come through old world skills which we have. So it's a question of balance. We can't again say hamara wala style acha tha, ye style kya hai, which we normally get into that.
Yes.
So I think what is required for the industry is a combination of these two and education again across the value chain. Across the value chain. I'll give an example. In my company and in several companies I have seen, uh, people say when in a meeting, please take away your cell phone. Well, then at least shorten the length. You'll still have 3 hours meeting, which is old world school. Waste everyone's time. And you take away the device which keeps people entertained and multitask. It's not going to work. So I think a good middle of the path would be to keep meetings short and then ask people to do away with their digital devices. But if you have 3 hours of meeting which are meaningless and still ask people to take away their digital device, it's just not going to work. So I think it's a very challenging area, but it requires a hybrid, old world, new world, and come out with a communication curriculum.
Okay, so that is an absolutely essential advice, guidance that I think we all need. So Dr. Khan, that's why I wanted to have you give your perspective and insight after Amitabh has spoken on the question. Sorry, Tushar has asked.
I think nothing has left to say anything after Amitabh has said. What he said, that is really the gist of the thing. As I think he has really answered everything in terms of, as Mr. Navneet also mentioned about the competition. You also said about competition versus free gyan. So he has just shared, but just clear everything in terms of saying one thing, that is the most important thing, that is collaborative skills and the collaboration. Now we do not have the competition, and biggest thing is that he very rightly explained in terms of interdependency the way it is really true. It was also happened like it existed earlier, but right now we realized after seeing this pandemic, so if everything was same and this collaboration means, so I'm not going to shut down the Maruti's Academy. I'm going to strengthen my Maruti Academy, and I'm also bringing on the table with lot many other aspects to just make it more effective in terms of their resources, in terms of learning to my people for other industry also. So this is one. And I just missed out what Tushar's question was, Vivek. Sorry, I was so involved in Amitabh's talk. He's so,
Yes.
his talk
That
was
is what
so.
Amitabh does. He does that to everyone.
So can you please repeat that
Yes,
question?
yes, I will
for
tell you. And I
Tushar?
want to bring in the context of Tushar Batra's question in to what Amitabh said, what Navneet has been saying, and what I want to hear also. So what Tushar is saying is, should it be made mandatory for any management student or a group of students to set up a startup during college? That's his question. Set up the startup during college as a part of their curriculum. That's the important part. But I want to add a little flavor to Tushar's question and then have you answer that. I can't give you easy. So based on what Amitabh said, give me a better option and I'll hire from DSEU. Navneet said, shut down Amitabh's, he didn't say it, but I'm saying it. Shut down Amitabh's L&D. And please, I'm not saying it literally, I'm saying it metaphorically. I don't want suddenly to be a controversy of a different kind and I lose a friend in Amitabh. But so if Amitabh has to be given an option, and we saw the soft skill context that Amitabh just provided, will setting up, first of all, should there be a startup as a part of the curriculum? That's one. Second is, will such a structure allow the students to also learn about their soft skills?
So should I answer the question?
Please, now you go ahead.
Okay. So I just tell you the kind of approach we are just going to implement in our university. We are introducing a entrepreneurial mindset curriculum. So we are just going to teach each and everybody to learn entrepreneurship. It's not that whether that person will go to just set up a startup or not. Even you are going for a job and you are carrying an entrepreneurial mindset, you will really grow in your job. So this is our belief. Another thing is, if you talk about soft skills, each and every program is devised like that. That is this soft skills component, especially in terms of communication skills and behavioral skills also. We are just imbibing those skills because, we have multi-entry, multi-exit system. Like after a year, students can go and join the industry. So we have to make him ready or make her ready at the end of 1 year, whether that person is completing the course or not. So after 1 year, after second year, and after third year, he or she will be graduating. So that kind of soft skill set and the kind of entrepreneurial mindset, whether by giving task to set up a startup or by giving a task to in terms of wealth creation. So by not many like workshops or some kind of projects they have to do. So this is very, like Tushar very rightly pointed out in terms of giving the kind of task to set up a startup. But as an entrepreneurship university, it's by doing. It's not just by theory. We are not going to teach them theory of entrepreneurship. We are also going to just make them practice in terms of entrepreneurship. So we are also in touch with not many groups. Those are coming and setting up some angel investors fund also. So even for some seed funding, for some kind of A-level funding or B-level funding. So we have a plan to in terms of setting up the entrepreneurial mindset along with the soft skills, behavioral skills, and hands-on practice on technical skills. This is all. Yes.
Okay, very well answered. Thank you, Dr. Khan. So Tushar, I hope that answers your question. So there are questions that are pouring in, by the way. Some are really interesting ones. I also want to tell the attendees. So now it's Q&A time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And the next few minutes we will dedicate just to answer your questions. We also will actually have you tell your question live, which means you can actually speak up. If you raise your hand, this wonderful medium allows me to actually bring you in and let you unmute yourself. So I can see there are a few people who have raised their hands, and I'm assuming that you want to ask your question live. So I see Mr. Deepak Sharma and Shyam Mohan Parashar. You have raised your hands. So Mr. Deepak Sharma, I'm going to allow you to talk. So you can ask your question live to the panelists. Go ahead, please, Mr. Deepak Sharma.
Deepak Sharma's mic is mute.
Yeah. Okay, we don't hear that. Let's go to anybody. I see two more names. I also see Gunjan. So I'm going to get you to come in now. Gunjan, go ahead. Please ask your question.
She's in mute as well. I don't know if they can unmute themselves.
Gunjan, they can.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, is my voice is audible to you?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So my question is this: what should be done to enhance the skill of student to meet the demand of industry?
What should be done for this to upskill the students to meet the industry demands is what I'm hearing.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question, Gunjan. So why don't we send this, Amitabh? What are the few top 3, 4 things that come to your mind, Amitabh, that you would like from an upskilling standpoint to see in the students that come out that you today are recruiting?
So it should be not more than 90 days linked to employment. And there are companies which are taking care of that because it meets their immediate need and it meets the need of young workforce to start making money. See, the patience and the time needed to educate yourself and spend significant of money for 2 years PG course, not everyone would have or the luxury or the time. And, as Navneet talked about, one should differentiate between skill and education. So I think 90 days, 120 days kind of module where the payback is very important is something students should demand and institutes and corporate should provide, and they are providing. That's very critical because you can immediately see the connection between your effort and your employability. And once you start practicing that skill, you become even better. Secondly, some kind of, which is again, I think, especially in infrastructure kind of situation, promoting, if you learn a skill, train 10 others. There's a lot of government programs which are sponsoring around that, which also enables you to stay in your place of work. You don't have to come to big cities, yet train and make, some kind of a, make your own living. That is very important. And I think the third thing is with digital. Those who have the capability and access to fast internet, they can give a lot of training to people anywhere in the world, which is, for instance, which they know. So, for instance, there's a lot of explosion of regional cuisine, and you can train online. Actually, you can train online, and and there's a lot of demand for that. The second, which we have all seen, is online physical fitness. Now
Yes.
people are using online tools to train, to give yoga lessons, and I think that's just wonderful. Somebody who used to go to 7 homes to give yoga lessons can do it just, if you have a fast internet access, and it's working out fine. So you should see. So if you are a cook, for example, I'm just giving an example. If you are a chef, you don't have to visit someone at the place. You say these are the items you would need, and we'll cook together online. I'll coach you. And you charge for that. And you charge for
Amitabh,
that.
are there specific skill sets also that you from an industry are expecting the fresh graduates to come to you with? Let's say you are hiring for GMR. So one thing you focused on was like the time-bound short-term modules that can upskill graduates or students who are seeking employment. That's the one part, right? So the good news is in Edmist, we do provide short-term time-bound coaching also that can enhance your skills. But I think what Gunjan is asking is what are those 3-4 skills that you would pinpoint? Come prepared with, let's say, digital literacy you talked about. Come prepared with leadership skills. Come prepared with effective communication, or how do you collaborate in a remote environment? Are there any thoughts in your mind, Amitabh, that you see as emerging areas of focus as far as the skills are concerned?
See, the first skill I would say, especially in this environment, is communication skill. And it's just not articulation. It's just not articulation. It's using all medium available to you to be able to get your point across, be it a customer, be it a supplier. That's very important. Okay. It's also use of technology in communication. I'll give you a very good example. If you come to the airport now, there is a queue management system and there is a social distancing norm. Now what happens is people are concerned they should not miss their flight. So there is somebody who has to communicate, put visual controls, as well as, give comfort to the guests. I think that communication has become so important that I just cannot underscore it. Okay, so that's very important. I'm not saying you should be very savvy technologically, but you should have a very good command of all consumer-led technology, which you can find on your device. I still see people unable to use Zoom to its fullest potential or Microsoft Teams to its fullest potential. I think that is something you should just educate yourself, because it's going to be the norm. It's going to be the norm. And I think the third thing which is critical from a skill perspective is if you are a team member or if you are a team leader, how to manage both in a remote work environment. So if you're a team leader, how to engage and manage your team and get the work output, that's very important. But if you're a remote worker, you also want to make sure you are not just a name on the screen for your leader. You want to be noticed. You need to make sure you are able to communicate your deliverables and have that relationship. So these are the 3 things I would say is becoming very important, because I see lack of, especially third, is leading to a lot of isolation amongst people.
Yes.
And I just want to highlight, and this is not to undermine the importance of other resources available. Excuse me. You can reach out to some of our experts that we have in Edmist as well, and we will be happy to help you in these areas. Thank you, Gunjan, for asking the question. Now I'm going
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to also bring in another participant who has raised her hand, Jyoti Singh. Jyoti, go ahead, please ask your question. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Vivek, we do have some questions in the question and chat box, so kindly take them.
Okay. Yes, they are also streaming. Very good. So why don't we in the while we have the online speakers also trying to unmute and ask. Let me ask a question from Abhijit Chatterjee. Actually, it's a great question, and I saw it a few minutes ago. To something that Amitabh just mentioned about communication, about digital awareness, and how do we navigate the remote environment? Navneet, let me ask you this excuse me, question from Abhijit Chatterjee. What he's talking about is there is a lot of focus on how can we multi-skill in the current work environment. So he's saying a person posted at the teller counter of a bank is also given the task of selling mutual funds and other financial products. So are we seeing an increased emphasis on to focus on interdisciplinary skills?
Absolutely. And to the point that Amitabh was making on the skills required, I would just add one, and that will be a segue into answering Abhijit's question. So the other very important skill, soft skill that people will have to imbibe is the ability to learn and unlearn, because situations are changing very dynamically, and in that dynamically changing situation, unless you have the capability to leave your baggage of the past and start looking ahead, you will be left behind. So it is very important to be up with the times, and that, Abhijit, is the point you're trying to make. You will have to keep continuously learning, continuously upskilling, reskilling yourself, because we are entering a very dynamic world, and a world that is being, Amitabh talked about, the yoga teacher who obviously unlearned his entire mode of trading and went live, and suddenly the world transformed for him, because instead of one or two or maximum four people, he was trading 100 people and delivering that training to them. So it is important that you multi-skill yourself. It is important that you keep learning and unlearning and keep skilling and upskilling. And one more very important thing, which we were probably lucky to escape that, but the next bunch of people are not that lucky, which is that you can't ever rest on your past laurels. It's a very dynamically changing world. I'm always reminded of all three, Amitabh, Vivek, your and our ex super boss Jack Welch, who used to always say yesterday's newspaper is only good enough to wrap today's fish. It is not. It has never been more relevant. So you have to keep upskilling yourself. You have to keep doing things in a evolutionary manner, if you will, if you want to really sustain yourself over a 35-year career.
Thank you, Navneet. Abhijit, I hope that answers the question. Amitabh, I'm going to direct one more question to you, and then I'll come to you, Kansab. Anwar, he wants to know, because I think it's in the context of the prior question also, where you focused on communication and the remote stuff. Because that probably requires a little bit of attitude change. It requires a little bit of adjustment on how we have moved from a three-dimensional workspace to a two-dimensional screen now, to be able to express empathy, to be able to express engagement, right? So what Anwar is asking, should we not train our students on improvement of attitude for better adaptability in a professional environment? I think it's a brilliant question. It probably, it should, is the, it kind of summarizes what I see, at least from my vantage point at Edmist. But go ahead, Amitabh.
See, that happens all the time, whether you are conscious of it or not, whether it is marketing messages, whether it is messages from politicians, they're all trying to mold your attitude. By the way, when you join a company, the first class you take is through values and behavior. This is how we are, this is how we expect you to behave. So, the question I would like to ask is, it's happening all around us. Still the attitude doesn't change. Why? Because you're trying to impose something on people. People inherently want to improve, especially youngsters. And I think absolutely we should try and change the attitude for the better. But if you tell a youngster, especially, this is good for you, he's not going to accept that. So what it means is, you have to give him 2, 3, 4 choices and let him or her make their determination, because autonomy is a overriding desire in this population, and they want to define for themselves what good attitude means to them. One of the things which we are discovering in GMR is just teaching values and behavior doesn't work, because people want choice. So you have to tell them, and you have to be open enough to accept their choices. So yes, at a very surface level, attitude needs to change for the better. But what is that definition of better? I think the medium of delivery should be choices with implications, and they are all adults, they will decide for themselves.
Very well said, Amitabh. Thank you. Anwar, I hope that answered your question. I think it is relevant for everyone, everywhere. Kansa, one question I think, and probably we'll end with that. It's from Sandeep Kanwar. He's talking about the skills upgrade programs and special focus on Delhi Skill Entrepreneurship University. What Sandeep is saying is this entire skills upgrade focus, should it be broken into two specific components? One that also helps in employment, the other focuses specifically on soft skills that just help the individual, whether it is for employment or not. Soft skills are very important today for interpersonal relationships. As a society, we have to grow. So while the entire conversation was about changing skill demands more from an industry standpoint, but I think he's making a very good point. Even as a society, you cannot ignore the bigger picture of us as a species, as a human being, as a race. Even for that, now we need to upgrade our own social skills. Do you think the university should also help in some ways to impart the social skills as a part of the curriculum, as a part of the program? I think it's a fantastic question.
Yes, very much. Very much. Especially we are focusing more on social skills. So this kind of empathy, the emotional quotient we have to work upon. That is very, very much required. As very rightly pointed out. Another things we would like to upskill people, like, or you may call them, like, in terms of helping them in terms of employability skills, especially soft skills. So we do have a program which we are going to that is under the proposal. Like, we'll have the incubation for employment. And incubation for employment is just somebody who is not employed immediately after the course. He or she will come under the 3 months incubation. And that incubation will also provide such kind of things, because as very rightly pointed out, even at this stage also, even you have to hire somebody who is at VP level, or if somebody senior, you are not going to just look at the technical skills of that person. So what you are going to look at that is more on attitude, more on agility, like how agile that person is. So we have to basically teach our students also in terms of behavior, in terms of agility, in terms of the kind of the collaborative skills. What is collaborative skills is more on social skills basically. So when you're basically, that's why we are also bringing more volunteering also in terms of practicing by students, by just engaging them in terms of some community work, some kind of some projects on in terms of developing the area which is nearby. So there are a lot many ways to do that. So we have that agenda in our mind, and our Vice Chancellor, Professor Nehar Kabora, who is the Professor of Organizational Behavior from IIM, like she's part of IIM for last, I think, more than 2 decades. So almost 3 decades. So, and same as with another Vice Chancellor, Professor Isnigda, she's also from the HR background of more than 30 years of experience in, same as with HR. So our focus really is on more on attitudinal development, organizational behavior development, and, or you may call behavioral development, and other skills along with the technical skills, along with the future skills. So these are the basically again the kind of combination which we are going to just deliver at our university.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. That was very well said. So I just want to thank the panelists. I think we are over our time. It has been a very enriching session, at least for me personally as well. Admist is extremely excited, Dr. Khan, to partner with Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University. I think you are going to be the model for the country to adopt and follow, like we were talking about. And I'm going to take it a step forward. It's not just the country. I think the world needs a model right now. And with the kind of demographics that Navneet shared, with the kind of interdependencies that Amitabh highlighted, I think the time is right. There has not been a better time and about a better person who has the vintage, the rich experience, and the kind of resource structure that you have set up for yourself. So I thank you, Dr. Khan, for the opportunity that
Thank
you're
you.
providing to the youth, helping them get aligned with the industry, getting in front of the industry rather than continuing to lag behind. And Amitabh, can't thank you enough for providing such a brutally honest insight and agreeing in some ways to also look at Dr. Khan for being one of your most important resources going forward. Dr. Khan is
Yeah.
sitting, he is responsible. He says he's responsible for 12,000 people, 12,000 students. And I'm saying, I think you're responsible for the whole country. So when you provide the choices that Amitabh talked about, and when Amitabh gets the choices, Dr. Khan, that you will help us create, I think we have a super bright future. So Amitabh, thanks for providing that input. And Navneet, finally,
Thank you.
I think the whole concept of micropreneurship, the whole concept about taking what, excuse me, taking what is today unsupported, informal, unstructured, and using a kind of a structure that Dr. Khan and Delhi Skill and Entrepreneurship University is going to create, giving it the uplift, giving it the firepower. I think micropreneurship is going to define the new normal. Gone are the days of big corporates. Gone are the days of big conglomerates. Many companies we have seen in the recent past that they have crumbled. That is going to be the new future. That is going to be the new excitement.
Just to add this, Vivek, I just would like to inform this forum, we are going to engage, or you may call just collect them or just bring them on one platform, 100 women micropreneurs.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
So that is our, recently we are just going to do that.
Great.
Very good, very good. This is brilliant.
Fantastic.
Very good. I congratulate you. I congratulate you, Dr. Khan, and your faculty, your administration for having taken such an important step in the right direction. So again, thanks to a wonderful panel,
That's
but this would not have been.
Wrap up on, Dr. Khan.
Yeah.
It was
So
really, it was a very good experience and learning also by listening Mr. Navneet and Mr. Amitabh, and hope to again be in touch with both of you. And again, we will become a collaborative. We will do some collaborative work together and help this nation and the world.
brilliant.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank the attendees for wonderful questions. Everyone who asked. I know we we were not able to answer all the questions. We are going to try to answer the questions offline if you have provided your email. So we will try to reach out. The YouTube link will also be available for public viewing after this event. So feel free to reach out. And if there were any specific sections that you have missed, feel free to look at those. Again, thank you, everyone. And I wish everyone a